Okay. As the Deputy Speaker, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 10:12 a.m. Moving on to the territorial acknowledgement. The Students' Council of the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association acknowledges that we live and work on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. The University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, land promised to the Six Nations, which includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. As always, a gentle reminder to every councillor, look up the history of the land you live in, be that Waterloo or anywhere else around the world, and recognize the impact of colonialism on that and how we still benefit from it to this day. 1.3, approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they would like to be amended to the agenda? I see Vincent has a one and Ben has his hands up. So I'm going to let Ben do it first and then I'll go to Vincent.
Sure. Yeah, so we also will have to discuss scheduling future meetings. It was an oversight on my part in preparing the agenda. So I suggest we can do that in new business.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Next, we have Vincent. Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
In the interest of time, I'd like to suggest swapping the order of items 4.1 and 4.2.
Does anyone on council has any issue with that change? I would ask people to, oh, never mind, sorry, yeah. It seems like no one is against that. I'm just gonna assume that is a friendly amendment, unless anyone has any issues with that. So that will mean we will discuss the student housing proposal before we discuss the approval of amending bylaws when we reach a general order. Any other changes? Oops. I will assume the agenda as amended then. Approval of minutes, we do not have any minutes for approval yet, so we can move on to reports. And the executive report, go ahead, President Easton.
Hi, everybody. It's been a pretty busy 2 weeks since we last met with council. A couple of highlights. I attended the Board of Governors retreat held in person in Waterloo. Had some really good sort of panel sessions on the future of post-secondary education, lifelong learning, post-secondary governance, and a session led by Dr. Christopher Taylor, the new University Associate Vice President for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism, on anti-racism. Really, yeah, a very, I guess, refreshing opportunity to sort of meet with the leadership of the university, talk about what's going on at WUSA. Otherwise, you know, it's governance review. It takes up a lot of my time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, President Easton. If anyone has any question in the chat, please type 1 in the chat. Also, Ben, can you share the live minute just so it's easy to track speaking turns in the future? Thank you. Seems like we do not have any questions for the president, so we'll move to the VP Education report. VP Emo, go ahead.
Hello. I really shouldn't have just woken up. I guess you'll find that most things are outlined in my report. I try and be pretty thorough with that to give you an overview of sort of what's going on and embed links to different submissions that we've made. I guess just one thing to highlight, we are aware of the current housing crisis that students are facing right now, and Catherine and I are working to address it. If you have any particular questions on items, feel free to ask them now.
Guess I can go. I'm just wondering, like, I really appreciate the housing survey we are doing, but like, do we feel it is too late, too little kind of a thing? Like the amount of time it took for us to think of doing this survey when we know that this issue was a pertinent issue, let's say in October or something. So I'm just wondering why it got so delayed.
I think a large part of that was figuring out what sort of impact we could have on the situation. I think early on, I was asking questions with this regarding council and EAC, and it was very much sort of the attitude of, well, WUSA can't just buy up housing. Or we didn't think that university was going to budge on particular things. I also don't think I realized the full extent of sort of the issue. But after kind of talking with the Committee on Access and Disability and seeing how engineering, how they were becoming more receptive to recording online lectures, and thinking about it sort of that way, and realizing sort of the desperation of students, did realize that there was an opportunity for us to sort of step in here, and at least ask for sort of more flexibility around how courses are delivered, to enable students who are might not be able to come to campus regularly, who might be commuting in or whatnot. So just saw sort of an opportunity there. Again, guess kind of like got over the hopelessness of the situation and decided to like do something. Put this together fairly quickly, because we started it last Friday. Then things were launched on Wednesday. So yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Lan, you're next. Go ahead.
I have two questions regarding your housing advocacy. First is that like I know people are being scammed for housings. Are you willing to address that in your survey or in your advocacy?
Yeah, so that's a little bit. So we've included housing resources at the end of the survey that sort of lists, I guess, some things around housing legislation, about how you have less protections if you live with your landlord or a close relative thereof, and ways to sort of, I guess, cover your bases, to make sure that you have as much protection as possible if you are in those situations.
No, what I'm saying
think
is
we're-
people are being scammed for money. Like a fake landlord is posting something on
Councilor
that.
Lan, I would like for you not to interrupt when the person is responding.
Okay, because sorry about that, but she's not.
No,
There was-
I
believe-
appreciate I appreciate the clarification. That's definitely something that we can do communications and whatnot around. But yeah, there's just like a lot of issues within the housing sector right now, and there's only so many questions that we can ask students before they get exhausted of sort of the questions and information's being bombarded with them. But no, I did not realize that that was a frequent issue, so I will work with the communications team to find a way to sort of address that concern.
Yeah, thank you, because for myself, I heard two people being scammed. So it's quite frequently, I guess. The second question I have is about your advocacy for the, you said like for people who don't have a housing workload, you're suggesting that like professors record their lectures. Is that what you are saying?
It's definitely so. The housing issue is definitely, I guess, a large one. I've been specifically instructed by EAC, to make sure that in whatever we're asking, we're not making any courses that were promised to be delivered in person to revert to an online format. And there's a limited amount of instructors available and resources available. So we can ask the university to create more sort of remote sections by having by hiring temporary, I guess, sessional instructors. But the likelihood that they're going to do that is sort of iffy. So one way to sort of, I guess, address some of the pressure on the housing market is to make things available online, and this enables some students to commute There's a lot of students sort of like within the GTA. And if they only say have like labs or something in person, but they get to sit at home and watch some of their lectures, that is sort of an opportunity that they might want to take. Again, in the survey, we're also looking at the university's suggestion to students to talk to their academic advisor to make arrangements if they absolutely cannot come to campus. And we just want to know how impactful that's been and how many students are sort of caught up in that.
Okay, thanks for clarification.
Thank you,
No worries.
Councilor Don. Just a quick follow-up on this. Like, have we tried to discuss with the university to reuse recorded lectures from previous terms? Because I think at this point, most, if not all, the courses would at least have some kind of recorded lectures that can supplement in-person classes. It could either be like, even if you're able to go to in-person classes, you could still use them as extra resources, because I believe like having those kind of things are pretty good, like from personal experience. I will let, I guess, VP Dong answer that.
Yeah, I feel like I know what Steph is going to say, so I figured I'd just help a little bit. I was also at the Board of Governors retreat that Ben was at, and I took the opportunity to sort of corner some various university administrators and faculty to sort of check the pulse on what these asks would mean. And one big thing that kept coming up, even from really sympathetic professors and deans, was that academic freedom is a huge thing for professors, and it's really, really difficult for the university to assert much authority over how a class is taught, including, forcing professors to make available previous content, or, telling a professor not to do something if it's hard, basically. So it's definitely something that Steph and I can keep in mind as an option to suggest going forward, but it's just like a little like, it's really hard to make promises here because academic freedom, basically. I brought it up to somebody who was on Senate, and they said that if this were coming to Senate, it'd be like the Senate meeting of the year, because all the professors would probably come out like defending their academic freedom, and it'd be a huge kerfuffle of sorts, if you will.
Thank you, VP Dong. I do like the idea of messing up the Senate, but that's just me personally. I will let Councilor Macri go next.
Thank you, Vice President, for this report. I guess I'd like to give a few comments and some feedback. I hope will be helpful to you. I guess first is, we kind of talked about the university not having enough like resources and stuff, like technology resources to record lectures, but we don't need to have like a perfectly ideal solution. I think in a lot of cases, if the university were to just tell professors, we'll reimburse you if you buy a tripod and a camera for recording your lectures, I think like it doesn't need to have like a professional like recording setup in the lecture theater. If it's just a tripod, like a camera on a tripod pointed at the blackboard, for a lot of students, that will be enough. And for the mentioned academic advisors, when you mentioned, I think you mentioned that in EAC, and I reached out to some students who I know have been having trouble and for their various reasons can't make it to campus. And it seems the academic advisors weren't being extremely helpful or knowledgeable in this, like you're saying they should be. And so I think that's an issue. And for the, I guess the third problem that, again, I know we have academic freedom, but I've heard that some blended courses that have no mandatory in-person components for some reason have like in-person exams. And I know like in the before times, online courses would sometimes have in-person exams, but right now Spaces Testing Centers is limited because of social distancing. And additionally, I'm not sure if blended courses would have the same rules as online courses in terms of students would be allowed to write an exam at a testing center closer to where they live. could you provide some information on, I guess, the rules around if a blended course has an in-person exam, if students have to come to Waterloo for that, or if they could write it at a testing center closer to where they live, and any kind of advocacy we're doing on that aspect as well?
Thank you.
I will
Councilor
find out
Macri.
the answer.
Go ahead.
Sorry, can I respond?
Yeah.
Yeah, in particular to that question, I will find out an answer for you shortly. I believe you brought this up with me like 2 days ago, and I was not aware of the fact that such blended courses have had inline requirements like that. My best guess is that it's professors essentially worried about academic integrity and preferring to have an in-person exam in order to sort of prevent that, which I would argue is a fair concern, but like I guess with any advocacy we do on this it's definitely getting across that we haven't completely got to a state where everyone can return. Like COVID is not over. Its impacts on the housing market and a whole bunch of other things are not over. So we can't, if a professor wants a course to have a more flexible course to have an in-person exam, and doesn't offer any flexibility or whatnot, like that cannot happen right now in this term. I guess with regards to the resources, a lot of the concerns that we're receiving from the university was just saying that they cannot offer courses that are they don't have enough professors to deliver something both remotely and in person, like having a course specifically specified for online. I do agree that recording it that way would solve it, but I guess I just want to clarify that that's sort of where the university is coming from on that front.
Thank you, VP Email. Before I let VP Dong respond, I'd just like to remind counselors to please not use the chat for anything other than ones, twos, or point of orders, point of personal privilege, or point of information, just so we can run the meeting smoothly. And also a reminder, the chat does not get recorded in the recording, so put everything on the record kind of a thing. But go ahead, VP Dong. Also, just to clarify, do you have 2 direct responses or just one and both of them it's to Vincent?
Oh, it's I just have one. The previous 2 was to you. That was earlier. Right, okay. I'm going to break it. Can I break the rules quickly and put a link in the chat as part of my speaking?
Sure.
Okay. This is just it doesn't really answer the question about taking exams in writing centers closer to you or anything, but it is a very quick overview from each faculty about their broad philosophy going forward with next term. So for instance, in the math faculty, they are planning to offer online options, especially for large first-year courses, but they are expecting people to be able to write exams in person, for instance. But I don't know what that means for people who are not in the area or things like that. That's a good overview, I guess. In terms of tripod reimbursement and basically financially supporting professors in recording lectures, most rooms right now are outfitted with AV equipment. I know that I was talking to, I think, Mary Wells, Dean of Engineering, and she said that she thinks that not almost all of the rooms that engineering classes would be taught in have the AV equipment required to record lectures and all of that. One big problem, besides just broader academic freedom, is intellectual property for a lot of professors. Some professors don't feel comfortable recording lectures and posting them when not absolutely necessary because to them, it's basically personally copyrighted content that they don't want to be putting out on the internet where that can be downloaded and reposted and things like that. which is obviously unideal for students, but just to sort of explain where that's coming from. So, you know, even with a process like that, we are hoping for the best, and we do think that there are a lot of professors who are very sympathetic and will take advantage of the AV equipment, especially with, I think that there are a lot of professors who are already open or intending to it. I think that there are even more professors who are sort of on the fence, and a little nudge from the university or their faculty to encourage them to do so would be willing to. But I do also imagine there is a contingent of faculty who aren't comfortable doing that when we're not online and they have the opportunity to teach in person anyway. So I guess, again, a suggestion we will absolutely keep in mind moving forward. It's just hard to make promises about what is and isn't possible.
Thank you, VP Don. And before I let VP Emo respond, this is the last, like after VP Emo, we'll just go to VP LAN, and that will be the end of this report. So we can move on. Go ahead, VP Emo.
Yeah, I just want to add something that I forgot to add before that Catherine reminded me of. But with regards to some of the questions and concerns about the usefulness of academic advisors in this situation, we will get the opportunity, I believe next week, to talk to there's basically this this group or forum that deals with sort of academic advisors, but we'll have the opportunity to sort of chat with them about the findings of the housing report, which by the way closes on the 8th, and if you haven't filled out, you should fill out soon. But definitely having conversation with them over I guess how much instruction and whatnot they were given to help students who were in those situations. Also getting across very clearly the concerns that students are facing sort of attaining housing, and sort of trying to come up with a solution with them there. So at very least we have that. So we are reaching out to a lot of different stakeholders to try and address the issue, but it's definitely going to be a tricky one, so we'll see where things go.
Thank you, VP Emo. Since Counsel LAN has withdrawn their term, we will go to the VPOF report, which I did send out in a PDF file 2 minutes before the meeting was supposed to schedule to start. So it's okay if you haven't read it yet. Go ahead, Matt.
That's Cannon's fault. I wrote it an hour before the meeting. So yeah, that came out a little late. There's quite a bit of, not quite a bit, because most of my stuff goes to board, but there's a decent amount of information in there about what's been going on the past month or so. I don't have a huge amount to add, but there are some highlights that I wanted to call out. Number one is last meeting when I was here, I told you that I thought it was very unlikely that we were able to continue the current UPass arrangement for next term. I was very pleasantly surprised when we got in our room with GRT or email with GRT, and they were very willing to continue that process. So the plan as is to continue the current fall sort of extraordinary opt-out process next term for students. Far fewer students are going to be eligible, obviously, because they're going to be residing within Waterloo Region or attending classes in person on campus. But for those few students that are outside, it's going to have a really easy process to get around it. Outside of that, I don't have a huge amount to report. I'll also say that fee statements come out, and this coincides with when I start getting lots and lots of phone calls and emails from students asking for details about fees and sort of wondering where fees go and what all that is for. So I'd very strongly recommend, if you don't already, read up on what the fees are for here at WUSA, because I imagine that's one thing that's really useful for your constituents, is to have you as a resource to know, hey, what are these things? What are these services I have access to? And that is my report for today. Any questions? I hope I'm just as popular as Steph was.
Councillor LAN, go ahead.
Do you have any update about the fees for co-op online students? The what's it called? The instant fee.
I don't have any update on change on that. No, I haven't had a chance to work on that too much with Steph. Amid everything else, housing is obviously a big priority for Steph, and for me, governance has been one of the big things taking up time. But I'm going to look at that over the next period here.
Okay.
I can't imagine, to be honest with you, that like that's part of the fee suite that finance has gone forward with, and that I assume went through the Board of Governors. I'd want to double check on that. I can't imagine there's much procedural to change that, but I will see.
Honestly, like many of them are USA related fees, like USA academic support and advocacy for co-op online only students, USA capital program fund, USA operation student life.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are WUSA fees being charged in that way as well. That's not because we changed how we're charging our fees. That's because UW Finance has taken a new philosophical approach to how they assess fees, and they are no longer discriminating by if you're a distance education student or an online only student. As for the reason for this change, I'm not sure exactly. We'll try to get an answer for that, though.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Land. Go ahead, Councillor Yang.
Hi. I don't think that the report was actually sent out as an attachment. Could it be uploaded to this meeting for reference?
Sure. I can definitely do that. I don't know what happened there. We'll look at it later, but let me try and add that report. It doesn't let me. I can just share my screen and open this report for a minute to let everyone read if that works for people.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk through it a little bit as well. So as what the report says, from what I can recall, from what I've done over the past month or so, the major thing has been working on governance, because that is the all-encompassing task right now, in terms of council-facing stuff, as well as those UPass updates. It should also be noted that the committees have met as normal and everything, and then the fee statement comment. Student Services Advisory Committee and USRC continue to meet, and that's where we've been engaging on creating an ombudsperson. I had the chance to meet with the PART. I forget what EEDL stands for, but the undergraduate representative on that subcommittee of PART, sort of what's going on with that subcommittee and how they're working. So that was a very interesting thing. And then we had the Great Volunteer Appreciation Night, where us executives served donuts and dinners to the volunteers that came out to be appreciated. Donuts in particular were created by our service kitchen, which is pretty exciting. A sort of a new thing that we're offering, and hopefully be able to supply C&Ds with in the future. We've had additions to our staff team that I had a great time meeting, and prepping for holiday cards to go out on WUS's behalf to our partners. I was also out of office for 2 days this week to the Board of Governors retreat, but that is separate from my role as VPOF, just as an at-large undergraduate governor. But figured I'd note it because it's of interest. And then the Planning Student Space Works Committee, Internal Funding Committee have met and dealt with their regular business. And I think I have an extra hanging bullet point at the bottom that doesn't supposed to have anything. So yeah, as I said, not a huge report. Most of my things go to board anyway. Sorry, you have to miss out on all the fun. Are there any other questions?
Winston has a POI. I'm sorry, I didn't see that before. Go ahead.
That's fine. POIs don't interrupt speakers.
They do.
No. The item 1.1 said winter 2021. I assume you meant winter 2022 on the GRT?
Yes, I did.
Deal.
Thank you, Councillor Macri. Now you have a 1 in the chat, so you can go to your point.
Yeah, so at the most recent MassLoc General Meeting, math students voted to return to the previous fee model. Like, what actions will you take to ensure that that decision of the math student body is respected?
Sure. So the process for changing fee models and how they're assessed, that goes through the Board of Governors. They have the final opinion on all of that. So at the Board of Governors meeting, I believe it's the last meeting before each term, but since they're spaced out so far, it's actually a number of months before the term. So in February, the Board of Governors will be meeting, and that's where fee updates can go through for the spring. Other than that, if it's after that, if we want to implement for September, then it would go through at the Board of Governors meeting in June. So myself and the president work on transmitting our fee updates to that body. Now, as we found in the past, the move from optional fees assessed and able to be opted out at the point of payment on Quest, and the attempt to move to a refund model, the university was not a huge fan of that. It was the university's position that they wanted to see all society fees charged under the same model, which, in my opinion, isn't fair and doesn't respect the democratic processes that each society have individually. So when we transmit those fees to be updated or to the Board of Governors, although we'll probably do that a little bit earlier, seeing as we're expecting some resistance. Should there be that resistance, that's when we will engage and push the perspective, the true perspective, that this was a democratic decision by the Engineering Society and the Mathematics Society to assess their fees in this way.
Okay. Councillor Macri, you have a direct response. Go ahead.
Yeah. So sorry, just to clarify, I understood correctly. So if there's if UW doesn't agree to, I guess, respect the society's decision, I guess he'll have to sort something out at COPS. And
I mean, that is an option if the university remains like, this is one of the avenues where, while we have an agreement that says X, Y, Z, the university certainly has a lot of leverage, a much larger amount of leverage than we have. So if the university, just like anyone that has, an overweighted amount of leverage, if they refuse to, do as we request, then we run out of avenues to do that. So then it either comes down to continuing to sort of protest that decision and work on that through advocacy, or, as you say, yes, there is the direction where we comply with the university's directive to have all societies assessed in the same manner. And that's something to be sorted out at that time, should that arise.
Thank you, VP Schwartz. President Easton, you have a response. Go ahead.
Thanks, Cannon. Yeah, there's also just on the piece about working through the Committee of Presidents, Students' Council actually has a policy 14, I think, on ancillary fees, which actually is in line with the university's position on this, that society fees should be like optional at the point of payment. So it's likely that work would have to happen at council as well. It's tricky because just by virtue of like the way that the university has the upper hand, and there's policy 29. Thanks, Mike. The university assesses the fees and then remits them to us, and by virtue of that relationship, they have a lot of power. But obviously, we are totally supportive of the society's legitimate and democratic decision to assess fees on a refund model.
Thank you, President Easton. We have Councillor Macri with direct response, followed by Councillor Yang, and I'm going to stop direct responses after that on this topic.
All right. So just to follow up to Vice President, just because I think he said this, but I missed it. When would those discussions start taking place with Waterloo, the university, about the fee models?
I imagine we'll be transmitting those early to mid-January. I think that's more of a Ben question when we end up doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we meet regularly with the associate provost of students. We can bring it up.
That too, yeah.
Thank you, President Easton. That, and then we'll move on to Councillor Yang.
Yes, I want to just clarify something President Easton was referring to, policy 29. I believe that's from an outdated version of the policy. I believe the latest version of policy makes a distinction between refundable fees and opt-out fees. So I don't think it's in contradiction of our policies. So I want to clarify that for the Assembly.
Thank you, Councillor Yang. We can move on to my point. Two things. First of all, I recently noticed, since marketing and communication kind of fall under you and the president, I'm going to ask you that we stopped using Facebook as one of our pages. And I'm just curious the reason behind that, because from my understanding, Facebook was an integral part of the organization for a good number of years, and a lot of our alumni use Facebook to keep in touch with WUSA, or at least kind of know what's happening with WUSA in general. Those people might not have Instagram or TikTok because they are of a bit of a different generation. And since one of the pillars in our long-term plan strategic plan is to connect with the alumni, how does this work with that?
Sure. So overall, number one, the decision to move from to stop working so much on Facebook and taking a bit of a step back from Facebook for some amount of time is very much a business decision. We have limited marketing resources, and we're looking to invest them in places where we're going to get more engagement and better serve our students. So in particular, WUSA is now curating a TikTok presence. And the hope with that is that, while we have alumni, we also have active membership, and those are the most important people to us. They are our actual membership constituents. They are our ownership. Those are the people that we need to be meeting wherever they prefer to be met, and serving how they prefer to be served, rather than dictate you got to be on Facebook to hear about WUSA's events. And that sort of reasoning is in line with what we've been seeing in terms of declining engagement on Facebook, very, very heavily declining engagement on Facebook. And that was even pre-pandemic, noticing that a lot of the Facebook functions that we used to coordinate our events, like the Facebook event pages and stuff, where I always found it rather convenient to be able to say, hey, I'm coming to this event and I want to be notified. Those even had relatively poor engagement. So it's a bit of a longer term strategy. In terms of the engaging with alumni piece, that is important. Absolutely, that's important. And I think that we have opportunities down that road in the future, and it might be returning to Facebook in a different capacity. But when it comes to very limited resources and having to decide among a much larger suite of options, I think it's most important to be looking at how do we best engage our membership as they return to campus, learn about WUSA services, want to be able to take advantage of the services that they pay for each and every term.
I'll let Councillor Macri go for a response, then I'll follow up with mine.
I guess in line with this, rejigging of the communication platforms we use, kind of a pretty glaring problem of a lot of these social media platforms, just in terms of student engagement, is many of them require you to have an account in order to see anything, or make it very difficult to view anything without an account. Do we have plans to actually utilize our website so that students who don't have Instagram accounts or TikTok accounts or aren't active on those platforms for whatever reason, or are active on different social media platforms than what we use, are still able to see what we're doing by just going to our website and looking at an events page or something that would have all the same information we're putting out on social media?
Exactly that, yes. That is part of this strategy as well as we're coming back, and that's what's being worked on, being redesigned right now, because that's a hole that I see as well. And I had a specific interaction with marketing to talk about sort of the future of that there, and being able to have all that on our website and have all the information rather than direct people to Facebook or to some other platform where you're locked behind an account. Because even Facebook was like that for much of it. If you wanted to do a little bit more than just see whatever link you clicked on. So that is absolutely part of the plan, and that will absolutely be happening.
Thank you, Councillor Macri. And my follow-up to that was, from my understanding, you can use Instagram to post on Facebook at the same time. Like if you're posting something on Instagram, you can say also post on Facebook, and it automatically gets posted there. So I'm kind of curious about the resources you're talking about, because from my understanding, creating regular TikTok videos would probably take more resources than having a normal Facebook post. And you mentioned that there are other strategies to reach with our alumni. I'm just curious what strategies those are, because while I agree our current student population is one of the most important aspects of our organization, but we have alumni as a long-range plan, and I think there is a policy, something that we need to work towards the long-range plan and not really against that. So how are we working towards reaching out, connecting with our alumni in that sense?
If I might take that question.
Sure, Ben, go ahead.
I think that this discussion is frankly, incredibly operational for Students' Council to be dealing with. Like, this is a decision that our staff made based on the information that they have available to them. Like, the number of people that, if you like look at the last like 6 months of Facebook posts, I don't think you would find one that has more than like 10 likes. Like, it's like, what's the, I don't think we're missing that much. And particularly like our audience is becoming like, not that our audience is becoming younger, but like, yeah, like the new generation of students that are coming in are less inclined to use Facebook anyway. We're trying to build out platforms on our website, like the WUSA events page, which would have the same functionality as like Facebook events, and trying to sort of divorce ourselves from that platform. And I think we should probably take like this discussion offline, frankly. I don't think it's a good use of council's time.
I'll quickly respond and then we can move on from this. I think the reason I bring this up is council and board it's their job to hold the executive and the organization to the long range plan. So I'm just figuring out how that works with reaching out to alumni in general, like not even just Facebook, let's just talk in general. Like what have we done in the last year to reach out to our alumni and make them feel part of the organization?
Well, our alumni certainly have reached out to us, one might say, with respect to the governance report, for example. I mean, I don't know. It's that's valid that it's in the strategic and long range plan, but like our primary reason for existence is the student body that is here presently, and we're trying to run our organization on that basis.
I'll let Chair Simpson respond, and I'll stop after that.
I'm just trying to pull up the long range plan here, but Vincent has a point of order.
Point of order. Are you Mr. Speaker or Mr. Deputy Speaker? You skipped over Naman.
Yeah, because they have a direct response.
Okay.
So my understanding of engaging alumni was to, it actually says in, I guess, subpoint 5 will increase student supports, engage alumni to support student-run funds and projects. So I don't know if that really has to do with events. It's more about soliciting gift donations from alumni to better support our current students. So just kind of wanted to clarify that with what it actually means to engage with alumni.
Thank you, Chair Simpson. I'm not really going to directly respond. I think, as Ben said, we can move this offline, but I'll recognize at-large members sued and let them have a speaking turn.
Hi. I actually wasn't sure if this is a 1 or a 2. So with regards to social media platforms that don't require you to sign up, and like most of our student body checks, to my knowledge, for news and updates regarding the university, there has been Reddit in the past, and it's still something that most students still look at. And I know that WUSA has been like a bit Reddit averse, and I guess there are a few good reasons why. I just wanted to point out that it seems to consistently have the highest levels of engagement from the student body, and yeah, maybe it's worth like considering as at least a place to announce things at, if not regularly engage with. I know that Steph hangs out there a lot and like helps a lot of students, which is really great. But I was hoping that this could be something that could be used more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll let Matthew. Do you want to respond? Or do you want to let Steph respond?
I just had something to say. Is just
Sure, go ahead.
I really enjoy Reddit. I've spent a lot of time as an undergraduate student on Reddit and engaging with students on Reddit. Although my usage dropped off a little bit this year. That's what working hours will do to you. A lot more than just working hours. But prior to coming on as an executive, I thought that WUSA should engage a lot more on Reddit as well. But I'll be honest, reflecting on sort of Reddit and its role on campus, I think Reddit plays a good role on campus, and I really enjoy it as an individual student. I don't believe that it's the right platform for WUSA as an institution to engage with. I think that there's a number of risks there. There's liability there for sure, because you and I both know, and everybody that is engaged on Reddit knows that there's a lot of it's a little bit of Wild West sort of community and environment in a way that is not something that I think that we should be looking at throwing staff members into, and having staff members deal with what can be very strong and harsh content that is on our Reddit. Again, it's something I will engage with. I will continue to engage with because I enjoy Reddit for what good it has. But looking at that sort of that bad with it, that's something that means I think that precludes us from getting involved as an institution on the platform, and that's unfortunate. I agree, it's unfortunate, but I think that it is a bit of an unpassable barrier.
Thank you. Okay, I'll let VP Emo and then Naman respond, and that will be the end of it. Go, Edward, you have a point of order. Go ahead.
Yes, I believe we're procedurally bound to only 10 minutes for a question period. I'm wondering how much time we have left, Deputy Speaker.
We have, I believe, crossed that limit. So we will, I guess, I'll let these two respond, and that will be the end of it. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll just say that WUSA is still sort of determining, I guess, how it communicates and engages with Reddit. Our new communications manager has sort of been working with me to figure out, I guess, when I engage with Reddit, what that sort of looks like in terms of any large updates and whatnot that I do for the student body. And there's been some hiccups and whatnot along the way, but in particular, I think we've gotten to the point, or at least I've gotten to the point, where the staff are more open to sort of coming to a compromise of what that looks like. But like a huge aspect that I think VP Sports really identified is that it is a very sort of toxic and brutal environment to be in sometimes, and I would not like to, I guess, subject someone who didn't want to be in that space to be within that space. It's an active decision that I'm making myself to do, and that I'm getting support from the staff to just vet what I'm posting to make sure that it's appropriate and representative of the organization. So I'm happy to have support and whatnot there. So I'm hoping that we can get to a better place for folks who are willing to sort of engage with Reddit in that way, to engage with Reddit. I'll say that personally, things that I post, when I post in comments and whatnot, it's usually been fine. When I post larger posts, I think you'll see the most recent one that I posted sort of giving an update, only got 25 votes, which is I don't know, very dismal, sort of sad. There's a little bit of harassing comments and whatnot within it too, so it wasn't great for my morale, which is something to be mindful of. I think that Reddit has the capacity to be a really great place, that it can help students significantly. I'll just say it's that usually when you end up with execs posting or some sort of official body posting, it usually doesn't go too well. I guess I'll just say offhand that I appreciate any at-large students or counselors who are helping sort of share what WUSA is doing and engaging with students in that way. I know that it's hard work, but students are more likely to sort of listen to you, and thank you for sharing that information and doing that sort of ambassador work and helping students there. I think you folks are a large part of what makes me not completely give up on Reddit.
you, VP, for those really nice words. Naman, go ahead.
Actually, given that we're over time and like the thing that I wanted to say is like pretty long, I think I'll just like not say it right now. I'll like bring it up with one of our great VPs later.
Thank you. We can move on to next part, which is, let me see what's on the agenda next. Sorry. Board of Director reports. Chair Simpson, go ahead.
Me.
There's
I'm
the
the next
report of
person.
Vice President
It's
Student
me.
Life.
Oh, sorry.
I'm the next thing on the agenda.
I'm so sorry.
Shannon.
And when you said it's me, I thought that was Abby speaking, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Go ahead, VPS, all done.
Hi. So in the email that was supposed to be the VPOF report, instead you mostly just got my like in progress blurb. I listed out a few things that are the main topics that are in my in progress report that I thought you might be interested in asking questions about. So I wanted to give you those ahead of time. I'd say that the primary things are in the area of wellness. The exec team met with the campus wellness senior management team a few weeks ago. I gave an update at EAC a few days later, but I thought I'd just sort of rehash the overview of what we sort of asked about here as well, which was primarily some updates on trans student care as well as mental health responses, specifically to immediate mental health crises, which is also a sort of topic that I'm working with special constables on to sort of better understand and see where we can make those tweaks that improve the, I guess, experiences of students coming out of that, as well as by nature of that increasing the chance that students feel comfortable accessing those supports, because you know, as poor as responses can get, you know, it's worth saying that those responses do save lives. So sort of doing what we can there. As Steph mentioned, I've been helping out with the housing survey stuff, but since we had a big long discussion about that, I won't hash that out too much. Same as VP Schwartz and, well, mostly same as VP Schwartz. I also attended the Board of Governors retreat, which is separate from my role as VPSL, but that did not stop me from from cornering assorted university administrators to talk to them about the various problems that students are having, because you know, it's nice to be able to leverage positions around the university to push forward initiatives that are good for students. I've hopped on board the USA train, which is driven by, I was trying to figure out who like the conductor of the train is. I guess at USA, it's Steph. I had the pleasure of having another General Assembly, but that was a few weeks back now, as well as joining Steph and Ben on USA Student Advocacy Week. Upcoming, I am also joining the authorship team for a rewrite of the USA Technology Enabled Learning policy paper, and the other papers that are being written this coming term are mature students and student financial aid. So Steph and I will both be conducting research related to that over the coming weeks to better inform any authorship work there. And I think that's the biggest stuff. So I'm happy to take any questions now or email later. Oh, a big thing is also in the sphere of wellness. The Wellness Collaborative has had their monthly advisory committee meeting, as well as we were invited to join the Community of Practice meeting. And a big topic over the last few weeks has been food insecurity. I think that we all, as individuals who are sort of critically thinking about the student experience and all of that, are well aware of the ways that being a student impact food security and food insecurity, the ways that you know, food is available on campus, the ways that income is fairly inflexible a lot of the time, the way that, you know, there's no such thing as clocking in and out of being a student. You never go home and get to like make your dinner after work is over. Like that doesn't exist. So I think that we're all pretty aware of how food insecurity permeates the student experience here. But I am more than welcoming anything either now or by email if you want to share a personal experience of yourself or of a student, or just things that you've observed that might be contributing to student food insecurity on campus. I would love to get those so that I can pass them along to make sure that the people who are working on this in campus wellness and food services are aware of the different things that they should be mindful of.
Thank you, VP Dong. I guess I'm the only one in the speaking order, so I'll go. Two quick questions. First was, I know recently the food service had started the locker system where people, is that operational now? Like, and if yes, how has been the uptake on that?
Do you mean the food support service?
Yes. So like they started the new lockers where people don't have to to help with the anonymity of things.
Yeah. For context for people, food support service is one of the student-run services of WUSA, and a recent initiative that they've been working on is installing some locker systems in a couple of buildings across campus for, I guess, like contactless hamper distribution, so that people can access their hampers without. Right now, the system is you go to Turnkey and pick it up from a Turnkey staff member. I do believe that the last update that I got, the lockers are still in the process of installation. I don't believe they're active yet, but I do believe that they're planning to have them begin, I guess, operation next term.
Thank you. And my second question
I
was
hope.
going to be about. That's right. Second question was about orientation and. Well, again, two questions related to that. One, what's the status if we are going to charge a fee or not? Two was going to be, what's the university's thought process on doing Waterloo Ready next year or not? And sorry, there's another third question. Any update on the scholarship for the O team? Because I'm really sad about the slow uptake on this.
Hold on, just writing it down so I don't forget. Scholarship, I forgot an H. So the fee, we recently met with the SSO, and as far as we can tell, no decision has been made yet. And there's not much that we can do to affect that besides just, let them know that, not knowing whether a fee is going to be charged affects our ability to plan for orientation. So I am sorry to say that there isn't a decision made on that yet, and we don't really have control over that. Waterloo Ready, as far as we can tell, is still going to be moving forward. We're looking at, I believe, a sort of hybrid-ish orientation model, but again, we don't really know yet. And scholarship, the big block to establishing the scholarship or bursary system is that we don't have a budget right now. I just heard like 5 Outlook noises at once, and it was pretty.
Sorry, can you
ghostly.
repeat what you said?
Yeah, the biggest thing is we don't have a normal budget to work with, so it's hard to move forward with that scholarship until we know how the fee is moving forward. There's limited ability to sort of establish the system because we don't know what that budget looks like. So I am really sorry, because I know that any like group of weeks of delay means another year of delay for it actually coming into effect, and I know that really, really sucks. So I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Aquino, go ahead.
To my knowledge, I mean, because I had gotten a bursary this past for the fall term for being part of orientation, but I think it was arts. So I'm not sure if it like has that for other faculties, but it was through main campus student financial aid, so I'm not sure if that's any help at all. But that's what when I went to look up like what the bursary is for, it said it was because I was part of orientation this past summer-ish, spring, whatever.
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. What What Cannon's asking about is basically there's been a sort of longstanding initiative that I believe was sort of kickstarted by Cannon to look into creating a bursary or scholarship mechanism for OT members because OT is a very demanding commitment, but it comes with a relatively small stipend, which makes it really difficult for students who depend on using that time for part-time employment to be able to engage with something like OT because it, despite the stipend, it is in effect a volunteer position that takes a lot of hours over the year. So we're hoping to be able to, with reestablishment of the fee, create a system where we can better empower low-income students to volunteer in really rewarding positions.
Thank you. Councillor Lan, go ahead with your direct response.
Yeah, just about the scholarship. I know, like for the math faculty, there are several scholarships given to students who are committed to student government, volunteers, community services, ranging from 1,500 to 5,000 for upper year students.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
So I'm just going to quickly respond. While I've seen those scholarships, I think most of them are for domestic students, and again, we want our scholarships and bursaries, at least for these roles, to be available to international students also. So just keeping that in mind, and I will let Ben have his one.
Thanks, Cannon. In light of the exhaustive reports that have just been presented, and due to the fact that some of the people in attendance, namely our general manager, have to leave at some point today, I move that we proceed to item 4.1, approval of amending bylaw.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
We have a point of order, so I'll let Councillor Macri go ahead.
We previously agreed to swap the order of 4.1 and 4.2, so we should be going to student housing proposal first.
Yes, but there's a motion on the floor now to move the order again. And that motion has a seconder as represented by Kino and moved by President Easton. So we will, you can debate on this motion and then we'll have a vote on this motion. So if anyone would like to have a debate, go ahead. Nope. Okay, we will move on to voting. Anyone against this motion, please type it in the chat. Same with abstaining. Councillor Macri is against. Thank you. I'll give it another 2 seconds. The motion passes. So basically what's happening now is when we reverse the initial orders, we are re-reversing those orders to have approval of the amending bylaws as the next thing on the general order. But before we go to that, we still have officer's report and the chair report. So,
pardon, Cannon. The motion was to proceed immediately to those items.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, yes. So we will be discussing 4.1.
Can I motion for a short recess before we start the discussion?
I will give everyone a 5-minute washroom break. So be back by 11:20 a.m.
5-minute washroom break is exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
Okay. I will be back too.